Welcome to the Roswell video, you guys. This is going to be a long video, so I just have a little introductory note here. The video has three parts, an overview, packet number 1, and then packet number 2. So look for those dividers, and I hope you guys enjoy Roswell. In the late 1940s, a group of people saw or claimed to have seen something extraordinary. We shall use our most critical faculties in the determination of whether these claims are true or likely to be true. At 10 p.m. on July the 3rd, 1947, in Roswell, New Mexico, Dan Wilmot and his wife watched from their front porch for about 50 seconds as they saw something traveling somewhere about 1,500 feet off the ground at a speed of roughly 500 miles per hour. Wilmot said they saw a flying disc, which looked like two wash balls placed together, glowing from the inside. In search of caught up with Wilmot's offspring in 1980.
The case began when Roswell businessman Dan Wilmot witnessed an amazing object over the town. His son tells the story.
This was their home in July of 1947, and it was one summer evening. They were sitting out here. Dad looked up in the west and saw an object that came down and had lights blinking, and it was rather frightening to him, but he said all of a sudden it seemed to rock a little bit and sort of counterbalanced itself, wiggle a little bit, and then seemed to settle down and take off at a rapid rate of speed.
Of particular importance to Roswell is Jesse Marcel Sr., a military intelligence officer of some high regard who is said to have seen and held unearthly artifacts. Let's hear from the man himself.
They took pictures, of course. They had a whole flock of microphones there. They wanted me they wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed or told the newspapers, the newsmen, what it was and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, which we both knew differently.
Major Marcel had to keep silent because of his strategic position at that time. He was in charge of all security and intelligence on atomic tests in the United States and the Pacific. Marcel retraced his secret recovery operation across the hot New Mexico desert.
We left Roswell perhaps around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As you can see, it's flat. It is very difficult. In fact, with just verbal directions, we never would have found it. We had to follow the rancher out there.
The crash site was so remote, it took an entire day to drive there.
The following morning, we went out to the site where the crash was. And what I saw, I couldn't believe there was so much of it. It was scattered over such a vast area. So we proceeded to pick up as much of the debris as we could, loaded in a wagon. We filled that up. It took us a good part of the day to do that, because there's such small fragments that we had to do a lot of picking. We found a piece of metal about a 1.5 to 2 feet wide and about 2 or 3 feet long. Felt like you had nothing in your hands. It wasn't any thicker than the foil out of a pack of cigarettes. But the thing about that got me is that you couldn't even bend it, you couldn't dead it. Even with a sledgehammer would bounce off of it. So I knew that I had never seen anything like that before. And as of now, I don't know what it was. It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of. Because being an intelligence officer, I was familiar with just about all materials used in aircraft and in our air travel. This was nothing like that. It could not be. It could not have been.
Okay, well, hopefully that was creepy enough for you. Let's get down to what you guys really need to do for the assignment. You'll notice a background change. I had to make an on-the-fly edit to the assignment due date, so that's to change for the that's to account for the change in background in this section of the video. So let's get going. We're starting off with a quote from Brian Greene. Exploring the unknown requires tolerating uncertainty. So I'm looking at Roswell Packet 1 of 2, and Brian Greene's quote here is kind of a modern version of, similar at least to Aristotle's quote about, that's the hallmark of the course, which is considering an idea on the merits. And sometimes when we consider an idea on the merits, we have to be comfortable with uncertainty. We have to be comfortable with certain aspects of what we're trying to understand being unknown to us, and we have to be okay with that. We have to open ourselves so that we're open to new evidence. We have to sort of be willing to consider things on the merits. So it's just really, this packet is just a continuation of what Aristotle was talking about thousands of years ago. Super important. The assignment is due May the 2nd, 2016 before midnight. So I've allotted a lot more time because this module was late in coming out. But it is due before midnight, so I encourage you guys to get that done. First thing to notice here, this is just an intro on a paper packet. This is plagiarism. Essentially, plagiarism is when you use somebody's ideas or words as your own and you don't attribute them or give them credit for doing so. So it's kind of like being a copycat. But at the same time, it can be considered deceitful because you're not really telling anyone that you're being a copycat. Unfortunately, most of the time, I think a lot of plagiarism is entirely unintentional. I don't think people intend to commit plagiarism, but it does happen. So whenever it does happen, I try to give students the benefit of the doubt, but in academia, it's one of the worst things you can do, right, is plagiarize. So I have LBCC's definition here of plagiarism. For this course, the rule is just going to be, if you are in doubt as to whether or not what you're writing is plagiarism or not, just follow these simple rules for ICE. ICE your words. You will identify them by using quotes, cite where you got the passage from, and then explain the passage. Right? Don't let the quotes do the work for you. So here's an example. Suppose I'm searching along the web or something, or I'm researching for this paper, and I pull this paragraph from one of the readings, right? I think this is Jeffrey article. Yeah, the Kent Jeffrey article. Most of us have seen now the famous pictures of debris from Roswell. The debris is clearly visible. There's absolutely no question this is the debris from an ML307 radar reflector. Right? Now, mistakenly, some students will say, that's great. I'm just going to go ahead and use that in my paper. Don't do that. Instead, what you want to do, because I'll notice it won't be your writing and it'll show up. So what you want to do is you want to identify someone else's work with quotes. So something like this, right? Pick the part that's most important. Don't just quote to fill up the space. Quote the part that you need, right? There's absolutely no question that this is the debris from an ML307 radar deflector. Then, so you identify them with quotes, right? Right there, and then right over there. And then you cite the work so that people know who you're talking to. So Jeffrey, 18, I just followed a rough MLA format. Then explain what the quote is talking about in the context of your paper. So you write this, you put your cite, and then you continue. Concerning right, so here you go. This is a passage from a paper that I just made up. Concerning the physical evidence of the Roswell crash as it was photographed on blah, blah, blah date. Right, I didn't put that in there. There's absolutely no question this is debris from an ML307 radar defector. That is to say, the one objective piece of evidence that we have about Roswell crash is that its debris was wholly terrestrial in origin, blah, 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 blah. So this is just to show you, albeit poorly, that you want to quote exact language and then cite the author, and then explain to me here why you quoted it, right? And that will keep you afoul of plagiarism. If you have any concerns about that, please, 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 please just email me. It's no problem at all. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Okay, so paper outline. This is the paper outline. It's pretty extensive for you guys, so you can focus more on the arguments than the organization. There's also a sample paper back here. Let me just say a couple of things. This paper outline follows the critical thinking worksheet that we had already in the first week. So and your discussion for Atlantis. So it goes something like this. Give me, let me shift forward here. When you're writing your paper, it has to have a certain structure. And essentially this is the structure, and it's outlined above in the outline. Your first sentence must always be your thesis statement. So you need to tell me what the aim of this paper is. The aim of this paper is to evaluate the claim that there's a typo, non-terrestrial alien craft crashed in the New Mexico desert on July, sorry for the typos. It's an accurate sample paper, right? Lots of typos. I'd give myself a C for that. Right? I'm telling the reader in my first sentence, hey, this is what I'm talking about in the paper, and I'm going to argue that there's evidence to support this claim or something like that, right? So that's the very first sentence. You don't need to come up with a lead-in. Sometimes people are just straining, like they say, for thousands of years, people have seen things in the sky and stuff. Don't worry about that. Just give me the first statement as your thesis statement. Then the remainder of this first paragraph in your paper is it's a roadmap paragraph. It tells me what you're going to be doing. So this is your thesis statement, and then you tell me the order, what you're going to do in the order you're going to do it in. First, I will articulate the claim being made. Second, I will explain the rule that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Third, I will argue that this case is or is not an extraordinary case. Fourth, I will da-da-da-da-da. Fifth, I will do this. Sixth, I will apply the reductio. Seventh, in light of all the foregoing stuff, I'm going to conclude my paper with my own evaluation of the Roswell case. You can track this language. It's fine. Now, don't repeat this paragraph exactly, especially because there's some blatant errors in it, but it's to give you an idea as to how it should be structured. Now, note something here. You have your roadmap paragraph, which consists of this thesis statement, and then each one of these are sentences that tell you, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing next. Notice this statement here. First, I will articulate the claim being made. Boom, it starts off the second paragraph. First, comma, I will articulate the claim being made. And then you tell me, given the number of witnesses and different versions, blah, 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 it's hard to be specific, blah, 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 right? And then you go on and finish your first paragraph, right? This isn't complete. It's just to let you know what it would look like. When you get to your second paragraph, which is the second thing you're going to talk about, which is the extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Second, I will explain the rule that blah, 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 blah. Right? To say that an extraordinary claim requires extraordinary evidence is just to say that the stranger the claim, the more evidence is needed to support it. For example, right? Blah, blah, blah. You don't need to go into too much detail, but you need to explain that principle to me. Then third, you need to argue that either this case is or is not an extraordinary case. So you might argue that according to Fermat's paradox, there should be more people visiting this planet right now, and so this is not an extraordinary claim. Or you may argue, oh yeah, this is definitely an extraordinary claim because mainstream science does not accept that aliens have visited this planet or something like that and left evidence or something like that, right? Then notice fourth, I will consider the types of available evidence in the Roswell case and determine if they meet the burden of proof. Again, you will find that up here in your fourth, right here. Right? It's the same thing. And then fifth and sixth. So you should, upon seeing this outline and this sample, you should say to yourself, oh my gosh, the paper is pretty much already written for me. I just need to write in the parts. You don't need to organize anything. It's already organized. And by the way, this particular format of using a thesis statement, slow down, Tex. Using a thesis statement like this and then a roadmap paragraph and saying first, second, third, and then using those as topic sentences. I can just assure you, having worked in law and business and, in corporate contexts and in non-corporate contexts, if you ever have to write a paper or a report or something for your work, and it's like, the aim of this report is to evaluate fourth quarter earnings in light of our new, liquidation, prerogative or whatever it is, or liquidation program. That would be perfectly fine. I mean, this is a fine format to write in. It shows people what you're going to be doing and how you're going to do it, right? So that would be a perfectly fine format for other contexts as well. But it's just to make it easier. So that's how the paper is set up. Let's just chat a little bit here about the substance. You guys have done great. We're almost there. Okay, so here's the outline, right? You're going to have a roadmap paragraph. This is your first paragraph. It's going to be a roadmap. It's going to have a thesis statement, be specific on the claim, and then a roadmap of what you're going to do, right? And you can track that. And don't worry about saying thirdly or fourthly. Just say third, comma, right? First, comma, second, comma. That's fine. Okay, so that's your roadmap paragraph and your thesis statement. Then tell me what the specific claim is that you're evaluating. Now, you're going to have read these papers and so forth, so you'll have more information than you've gotten so far from the video, but use it to formulate your own claim. Make sure it's something that we can test. Well, maybe we can't test it, but make sure it was something that, never mind that comment. It's a stupid thing to say. Okay, not really, but okay, extraordinary claims. Then again, you're just going to tell me what the rule is. You'll explain the rule briefly. And then here, is this Roswell claim extraordinary? Well, I had hinted at it down below when we were talking about the outline of the paper. Some people say yeah, because the existence of extraterrestrial visitation to Earth is generally not accepted by the mainstream, right? Generally, people don't think that's true. They don't think we're being visited nightly by UFOs. However, there are people who argue to the contrary, and they say this is not an extraordinary claim. In fact, it's an extraordinary claim to think that there isn't life in the universe. That would be, you'd want to look at Fermat's paradox. You can check on Wikipedia for that. But, right, and then people also kind of point to this sort of appeal to tradition argument about, there being a history of extraterrestrial visitors and so forth. So those are just some sample arguments for you. All right, then you're going to apply the rule. What kind of evidence do you think you need here? Remember, what kind of evidence you think you need determines on how crazy you think the claim is, right? If you don't think it's a very crazy claim, you're not going to need as much proof as a diehard dogmatic skeptic would, right? So it's going to depend. So you need to react to portions of your paper. Okay, what kind of evidence is available? All right, this is an important point about Roswell. Man, there's a lot of information out there. And I mean, a lot of information out there. It's absolutely dizzying. Sorry, you guys. What's out there? So, come on now. Here we go. All right. It's befuddling what is out there. So I encourage you guys to try and focus. Sorry, there's a little tailspin there. Try to focus on maybe, one or two people in terms of eyewitness testimony. I mean, there's just no way you can possibly address even the most basic characters in this play in a 5-page paper, but just, give me one person. Give me either Jesse Marcel or give me Philip J. Corso. Google it. And find out, okay, what kind of evidence do they have? Does Marcel still have a piece of this thing? Because there's not any physical evidence, and there seldom is with UFO cases, almost by definition, but the credibility of witnesses becomes a huge factor. So you want to look at how people evaluate Marcel and look at how people evaluate someone like Corso, right? Have these people made other claims that are demonstrably false, right? Do they have a history of doing this kind of thing? This is not an enterprise in terms of smearing somebody. If you look up, for example, if you look up Stanton Friedman and his comments on Philip Corso, at least some of his opinions, you see that he doesn't believe Corso, but he's a ufologist. Friedman was the first lead researcher in Roswell. So it doesn't, because you're examining someone's credibility, it doesn't mean you're debunking. It just means it's one factor in your analysis, right? Okay, physical evidence. There's lots of testimony about physical evidence, but that's not the same thing as physical evidence, so be careful. Also, look at Roswell Anatomy of a Myth for this discussion regarding this photographic evidence and whether or not this was flying saucer stuff or switched material later. All right, applying Occam's razor, right? You're going to apply Occam's razor and the reductio, just like that flow chart. You're going to explain Occam's razor, 1 or 2 sentences, then apply alternative explanations, right? Is memory an issue here? Do we need to explain wreckage of an alien craft or memory of a wreckage of an alien craft? Project Mogul, you don't have to kill yourself reading up on this, but if you want an alternative explanation for the wreckage and so forth, look at Mogul. Some people find it satisfying, some people don't. Lastly, then you're going to apply your reductio. Okay, I have these questions here. I'm not going to blast through them again, but some of the questions that people ask are things like, if it's true that Roswell is a huge cover-up, then where is this massively advanced technology, this technology that is many, many generations beyond anything that we had, many millennia beyond anything that we had in 1940, right? And the argument is we don't seem to have anything like that. Also, if the U.S. is in cahoots with aliens or something like that, then why does it have such a difficult time getting other nations to do what it wants, right? So these are sort of standard reductios brought forth by skeptics in this debate. On the other hand, I have another good sentence here and it didn't make it in. Bummed. Okay, this is an important point. Some people try to run the reductio on the other side and they say, look, I mean, if this is true that Roswell is not a cover-up, then somebody like Jesse Marcel, who's an immensely gifted and intelligent Army officer, can't tell the difference between a flying saucer and a weather balloon, right? So that's a big problem. That seems absurd. So these are just ways to apply the rules in a more equitable manner, more fair manner. Okay, then this is the sample paper. We talked about this before. Format can be MLA-ish. I'm not concerned with the works cited page. Make sure that your work is double-spaced for 5-point font. Okay, that concludes packet 1. All right, you guys, welcome to the second packet. This is the last thing you've got to do before you write your paper. Notice the second packet is in green. The text is in green. And that's to let you know that this is the readings packet. I also went through the horrendous work of bookmarking this sucker. So I don't know how your Adobe works, but if you go to show, hide, you can do navigation panes, bookmarks, whatever you need to do. That's how I do it. But notice that some of these are super long. This first one, UFO evidence, is only 2 or 3 pages, right? But Jeffrey Kent, that's 22 pages. And Cal Korff's is not super long, but it's dense. So, okay, so this is your first page, right? These are your reading packets. You are not required to only use these readings. If you find something else you like and you think is topical, please, by all means, but you don't need to do anything extra. I've given you all the articles you need. All right. This first article is from ufoevidence.org. It's a very pro-UFO website. It's pretty well maintained. Of course, there are grammatical errors and stuff, but I'm not sure who's behind this one, whether this is Stephen Greer or who, I don't know. But anyway, somebody who loves UFOs has done this website, or someone paid somebody to do this website. They have lots and lots of resources, but this is just a summary overview from Roswell. I got it from ufoevidence.org because I'm very cognizant of the fact that these are both debunker, skeptical views of Roswell. And so, I got the ufoevidence.org out there, but the problem for this assignment, the reason we don't have more sort of pro-Roswell, like a Stanton Friedman essay or something like that, it's not because I care which way you end up. It's just in terms of time requirements and finding arguments, this is kind of the way to go. If you want to include more pro stuff, that's fine. I mean, as long as you're following the outline, you have the gusto, go for it. I think it's great. All right, so this is Kent Jeffries' bombshell of an article that essentially he was an early Roswell researcher, and when he went south, a lot of people thought, okay, this guy's right. But I have also, just a quick side note, in this packet, I should have mentioned this beforehand, I have numbered the pages. So there's 2, right? 1 doesn't have one. This is 3, but it's horribly done. See that? It's in the header. Okay, and then this is 4, whatever. And so you can see in the description, I also have that here. Okay, so this is a great article. It's a wonderful summary of sort of a certain version of skeptical arguments for Roswell. I encourage you to look through each one of them and come up with a little summary of each section, right? So, for example, he gives a little outline about who he is and his connections and so forth, and what drove him to write this article and what his view is. So, okay, so he addresses people thinking he's, a defector. He addresses, misleading information he claims that's out there about Roswell. Then he talks about certain UFO crashes there and how likely they would be. Then he talks about some unrelated military documents. Well, they're related in a sense, but he thinks they're dispositive as to demonstrating knowledge or lack thereof by governmental agencies or actors. Then he talks about the men of the 509th. This is the group of people who were said to have transported the remains. No slouch. Those folks were crack air pilots. They were fantastic. And then he talks a little bit about memory and perception and communication and so forth. One of the most interesting portions of his article is definitely this remarkable resemblance stuff. Now, this isn't clinical, right? He goes to the same artist and so forth, but we don't know. But it's really very interesting. Okay, and then substitution of wreckage, witnesses, guardians of the hangar. So this goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So I would encourage you to look at this. It's a great, great article. Now, a much shorter article, but of somewhat similar skeptical bent, is from Cal Koreff. If you Google this guy, apparently I don't know what's going on with this person. He was at one time a UFO debunker, but then people don't seem to like him now. He was making, according to some people, he's making weird claims about things, and I honestly don't have any idea, but this is from Skeptical Inquirer, so the arguments are interesting. And these should give you kind of the background for what you want to fill in on your own paper with regard to those arguments. So you don't have to scour every single one, but you do have to read them and incorporate those arguments for your own ends. Okay, a couple of points with papers that I always make. When in doubt, use a quote. I don't care if it's 5 pages or 4.5 pages or 5.5 pages or something like that. The 5 pages is just an idea for you to get. So aim for that. I look forward to your papers.